It's Misha. This morning is going to be a little bit brief. I'm super busy, but I wanted to talk about PCOS. It's something I haven't talked about for a while, but it's something that affects a tremendous amount of women. And traditionally, we've been being told that it's genetic, that you can't do anything about PCOS, and that you just got to live with it. Here's the thing: PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, is more linked to insulin resistance than just genetics alone. So I'll get into the science about it at 3 p.m. this afternoon. We'll go in depth about that. But this morning, I want to share my own story with PCOS. And unfortunately, the protocol wasn't around when I was suffering with it, when doctors weren't addressing it for me. And so I didn't know. I share it because I struggled. I was frustrated. I was devastated. And I don't want young women today to go through the same thing, because PCOS is actually becoming more and more prevalent as insulin resistance is becoming more and more prevalent. So, polycystic ovarian syndrome, you may have lengthy, hard periods. You're being told you can't conceive, or that it's going to be very difficult for you to conceive. That was me back in my late 20s, early 30s, when I was married and trying to conceive. I was at the doctor's office twice a month because we couldn't figure out why I couldn't have children. Nobody said PCOS. Nobody said that the food environment was causing this to happen to me. Nobody addressed any of that. And for me, it was hard because I wanted kids so badly and I couldn't have them. And yet, at that stage of my life, I'm looking around. I see a woman that I worked with who left her kids in the car, three of her kids, for hours, sometimes 7 or 8 hours. Her kids strapped in a car in the heat of the summer, in the cold of the winter, while she's in the bar chilling, flirting with guys, whatever. And I'm like, how, Lord God, how is this possible that somebody like me wants kids so badly, to love somebody so badly, to take care of them so much, and yet people like that are having children left and right? People who aren't caring about them, people who aren't taking care of them. That was my thoughts. That was the struggle I was going through. I felt like it wasn't fair, and I was devastated. I would cry. It caused a lot of problems in my family because I was at the doctor all the time trying to figure this out. Eventually, I was able to have two children, and I called them like gifts from God, because I just really didn't think I was going to be able to have kids. It wasn't until years, decades later, when my kids were already adults, that I started to understand PCOS. And when the doctors were talking about all these cysts on my ovaries back in the day, they made me feel bad about it. Like I was doing something wrong. Like I was just, the type of person that they didn't want to have in their office. Hey, Jersey City, you guys, welcome in. Welcome in, everybody. So, um, I was struggling, and now I find out that PCOS is really linked to the foods that we're being fed. It's linked to hormonal disruptions, starting with insulin resistance. And it started me thinking, man, if I can't share this with other women, if I can't help other young women understand this, then I'm not doing something right. And look, when I started talking about this 4 years ago, I would get hit with all the people who said, it's just genetic, stop it, you don't know what you're talking about. But guess what? Science is linking PCOS and insulin resistance together more and more every day. So we'll get into, like I said, I'll break down all the direct science about it later today. But what I want you to know is this: PCOS is in part an inability for your ovaries to function in the right timing. And estrogen is a hormone that really regulates that timing. What most people don't realize is that we all have testosterone, and it gets converted into the estrogens. With insulin resistance, we'll talk about that in depth later, it impedes testosterone being converted into estrogen. Now, the ovaries don't have the hormone that cues them to do the right job at the right time, and that's causing the painful, lengthy periods and the infertility. You guys, this happens with men too. I'm focused on PCOS, but men, if you're suffering with erectile dysfunction or low testosterone, it happens for you in a very different way. but insulin is still the main causator of those two things as well. And I can cover that later, or if any of you gentlemen want to know how that works, let me know and I'll talk about it. But look, it's not just me. Like, now I know what causes it, and now there's a protocol that I use to overcome my diabetes and all the causes of what was happening with my PCOS. Now I've been able to help other women. So I have a woman that um, couldn't have kids. She was being told the same thing as me. Couldn't have kids. It's genetic. Not much we can do. This is just your fate in life. And she started listening and gave the protocol that we're going to talk about a try. And here's what happened with her. Month one, she started to have a more normal timeline for her period. And if you have PCOS like me, mine was at least 6 weeks apart. Could never guess. Maybe once a year I would have one that was 4 weeks apart, which is a normal cycle. So hers dropped closer to that 4 weeks the first month. The second month, it was right on time. The third month, she had no period. So she's devastated. Like, I thought this was working. What's going on? What happened? I was so hopeful. What was going on is in her third month, the girl who was told she couldn't have children or would be very difficult to have children, and that this was just her life fate, her genetics, conceived. That child is now 3 years old. So simply by adding in this protocol, addressing her insulin resistance, all the stuff that her fertility doctor was telling her got wiped away because they're not addressing this piece. And then there's another young girl, her dad was an EMT, and he knew she was like stealing his protocol and she was just doing it on her own. And he didn't want to say anything to her because he didn't want her to feel embarrassed and he didn't want her to stop doing it. So he just kept buying extra product, pretending like he didn't see that she was using up his product. And she had been talking about wanting to start a family, but he didn't know she was actively trying. And within a few months, she was able to conceive and have a child, and he is now a grandpa, and that child is over 2 years old. And all it took was the same protocol. The same thing we all three did to address our insulin resistance is changing girls' lives around the world. Not girls, young ladies, but that leads into, and we'll talk more about that this afternoon, but that leads into hormonal dysfunction for women and men throughout your life, not just childbearing age, but it leads into all of that. Thank you, Claudia. So I want you to understand that these things, the metabolic infertility, the erectile dysfunction, PCOS, low testosterone, hormonal problems in menopause can be alleviated, reduced, helped by simply addressing insulin resistance. Now, the protocol that I use does just that. And it's really simple. It's 2 drinks that I have throughout the day. I have water in one cup and tea in the other. So I was trying to like which one is my tea. So this is actually my second tea of the day. I got up early, was working hard. The tea gives me mental clarity. It gives me energy. It helps reduce my insulin by making me more insulin sensitive. Helps me with HGH and ketones being kicked out. I haven't eaten since about, I think, 10 o'clock last night. So again, I'm about 12 hours into a fast. I'll make it another 4 before I eat. And that's it. We're addressing insulin, getting the insulin down so that it can be better received by your body. Now, yesterday I talked a lot about insulin and its effects in the body. So you can go to YouTube and watch that video in detail about what's happening with insulin resistance and diabetes and how that all occurs and why fasting is important. But know that there is a protocol out there that can help. Now, for you guys, I have guys who I can remember a school teacher who was overweight. No guy wants to talk about the fact that they're having erectile dysfunction. His testosterone was low. I see more and more men with low testosterone today than ever. And would you be surprised to know that insulin resistance is causing testosterone dysregulation in men and in women. So in women with PCOS, you're having too much testosterone. So you get hair on your chin. You start to lose hair on your head. You're more aggressive. Your mood swings are worse. Your periods are further apart. For men, that means maybe you're having the love handles or the man boobs or whatever. and you're being told to go on testosterone therapy, which I think is great. But what if you could raise your testosterone by simply addressing insulin resistance? Because this teacher was able to do that, got rid of his erectile dysfunction. His doctor had tested him as very low testosterone, wanted to put him on therapy. He said, "Give me 3 months. I'm going to try this protocol. We'll see what happens." In that 3 month time, his testosterone levels bounced back up to normal because he addressed the insulin resistance that was causing the testosterone dysfunction. His erectile dysfunction was gone, his wife was happy, and he changed everything, and he's not the only one. Hey, Aaron, happy birthday. Happy birthday. So, you guys, it's metabolic infertility when insulin gets in the way, and PCOS is something so many young ladies suffer from. And not only is it the lengthy periods, the inability to conceive, but so many women, young women especially, in their late teens, early 20s, start just packing on weight that they can't get off and they don't understand why. That's a symptom of PCOS. And what if those girls, those young ladies, were able to have normal cycles, were able to lose that excess weight that's destroying their self-esteem and just live a normal life. I remember a girl when I lived down in Boise, Idaho. She was a cheerleader. She was thin. She was active. She was an athlete. And all of a sudden, around the age of 17, she just started packing on weight, ended up with the big round face and all the excess weight. So she went from someone who was highly sought out, an athlete, a cheerleader, to someone who was obese and being picked on, and it was devastating for her. And at the root of that was PCOS, and I didn't know at the time that it was so simple to address because I would have reached out to her. And it's devastating to me that I didn't have the information to help her back then. But so now I'm wanting to help women, young women, girls understand that this all can be much easier addressed than you think. And it just really comes down to one hormone that's causing havoc with the rest, and that hormone is insulin. So does anybody need me to explain what insulin is and why this is happening? I can talk about that briefly. Does anybody have questions? Has anybody experienced this? There's the pain of being a woman who can't conceive is devastating. It's hard for us. We feel incomplete as human beings when that happens, especially women who want to have families. So it's an important thing to address for all of us, especially those who are wanting to start a family. So maybe you're a mom or a grandma and you have a daughter or a stepdaughter or a daughter-in-law who's trying to conceive and they're constantly going into the doctors and they can't get answers. Maybe you want to share this with them. Maybe invite them back at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we dive into how this is all causing this dysfunction, because we're also going to go into how insulin resistance affects you in pregnancy, how resistance affects you in menopause, how it's creating the PCOS and other fertility issues. And I'm going to break it down so that you can see this pathway that's real and clear, and why this system that I used, 2 drinks, a tea in the morning and a tea at some point later in the day and a pre-meal drink, helps it so drastically. So here's the thing, the protocol, you guys, it's in the link in my bio. By the way, I love to just chat with you and see if this actually will work. So reach out to me and let me know if you need to have a chat. If you want to understand this more, I'm more than happy to do that with you. um, I want to be clear though, I'm not a doctor, not a physician, anything like that. I'm just a real world woman who suffered with all the things that I talk about and got better from them, and I'm on a mission to help other people get better too. So, if you're suffering with those things, what would your life feel like if they were just seemingly magically gone and it didn't take a bunch of pills or shots or crazy methods to help? Because all this is supporting your body and doing what it's supposed to do. You still get to eat the foods you love. You still get to live the life you love with some very minor changes that are very sustainable. And that's what's changing people's lives. So, you guys, I do have another meeting I have to hop on. Sorry, this one was so short. Please understand that PCOS is not just genetics. PCOS is driven by the food environment we're in and the fact that it's so damaging to our bodies, the lack of nutrients, the excess sugar, the lack of fibers, and that creates this lack of energy and all of these other dysfunctions that are listed up above. So join me back at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to dive in deep because that's where I love to talk, is on the science side. And we're going to show you how insulin resistance is causing these problems. So maybe it will make more sense as to why the solution works and hopefully get you to understand that maybe this is something that you can add into your day to really change your life. So if you're interested in the protocol, please visit my profile and in there's a way to reach out to me via WhatsApp. So it's encrypted, you're safe. Um, just let's have the conversation. Let's start getting you feeling better. Let's start changing your life. I'm going to hop on this other meeting and we will see you guys back at 3. Have a good day. Oh, I can't. There we go. Hey guys, thanks for joining. Um, all right. Have a good day, you guys.